Hey, somebody needs to paddle faster. You are? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to The Professional Noticer. Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. I thank you for making me a part of your week. My purpose here, today with every show we do, is to play the part of a best friend or a coach. I want to help you live the life of your wildest dreams by giving you access to the greatest mentors the world has to offer today. The Professional Noticer is sponsored this week by our friends at Tucker ATV. You know, the sheer variety of power sport products at Tucker ATV will absolutely blow your mind. Hustler turf equipment, the entire line of Echo power tools, and of course, Tucker ATV carries every make and model of Polaris ATVs. They have the big Polaris side-by-sides, the even bigger Ranger Crew, and you have to see the showroom. Taxidermy, antique displays, the indoor porch with a porch swing, comfortable chairs, television, free coffee. You need to stop in and meet Shannon and Lisa Tucker and their whole staff. They treat customers like family, which is why folks from 14 states have done business with Tucker ATV. Highway 43 North in Jackson, Alabama. Tucker ATV, the small town business with the national reputation. Observations and answers, that's what we do here on The Professional Noticer. And as you know, we love it when somebody comes to the table with both. Today, we've got a return engagement. Now, I gotta say, we're pretty careful about who we put on this podcast and who we give access to this platform. And we do a pretty good job, we think, of it. But you got to be special to come back again and again. And we have a return visitor. And this is not his first time back. But Jonathan Brush is an author. He's the author of The Personal Triangle, The Skills You Need to Live Life Well. And he is a speaker. But I know him, we know him best as the president and CEO of Unbound. How about you, Jonathan? How are you doing?
Well, I was thinking, Ann, that if I came back again, I was probably going to have to learn how to play an instrument. I mean, I've listened to all of your episodes, and I know that most repeat people are either way more successful and famous than me, or they're really good musicians. And so I'm pressing the limit here because I don't know that I'm learning the guitar anytime soon, even if I am on Wisdom Hardware.
The thing about you is you have great information. You have what we call wisdom, because you have been able to look at situations, dissect them, define them, and then put them in context where we can understand what you're talking about. And that's part of the reason I love talking to you. You and I talked on the phone for over an hour a couple of weeks ago, and I love listening to you. Now, just to refresh everybody's memory, explain Unbound.
Well, I thank you for the opportunity to do so. So what we say is that Unbound trains young adults to thrive. And people say, well, that's kind of interesting. What do you mean by that? And what I really mean is that I don't want to say I train young adults to be successful. Because I think when people hear success, they say they translate that as some measure of fame, fortune, or power to be successful. And I'm totally fine with people becoming rich, famous, or powerful, but I'm not particularly interested in them doing it as the end goal. Because I think that'll if you do succeed, it's an empty success. And really, most people won't succeed because becoming rich, famous, or powerful is not easy. That's why it's interesting. That's why we look at it.
Right.
And so I want to pick a different word and say, we want to train young adults to thrive, meaning that we want them to have a positive outcome, but we don't want the trappings of that success hanging around their neck. And so people say, well, how do you do that? And my answer to that is that we train young adults to thrive by helping them figure out what's next. We live in this really exciting world where there's all kinds of opportunities, but in many ways, there's too many opportunities. And so students are saying, I don't know how to navigate this world full of AI and technology and seemingly endless possibilities, and yet I can't get a job. And so we help them figure out what's next. We train them in marketable skills. And you only hire people that can help you build your business. And so you have to have a set of skills to do that. And we surround them with a community that will give them benefits for a lifetime. And if we do those things, then we can train young adults to thrive. And we have a definition of what it means to thrive, but that's what Unbound does. And we do that through hybrid education, which means we use the internet to deliver some content, but 4 times a year, which I think is different than the last time I was here, but 4 times a year, we put them on a plane. Once every quarter, we fly them to some part of the country, and we put them through a very intense, long week experience that ends up having lots of results, not the least of which is it really bonds those students and forms that live community.
Yeah, and when you say a week-long experience, this is not like rope courses or anything. This is real education, but education in a different way. Say, tell me one of the differences or some of the differences in what Unbound offers versus a traditional education, and also tell me what age kids are we looking at here?
Yeah, so I think that when you ask, like, what is the difference here? Well, first of all, of course, there's a couple of ideas that are behind Unbound. And those ideas I think are important to Unbound, but they're ideas that I would like anybody who's listening to this to consider, even if you never do Unbound, because I think just asking and answering those questions will help you make a better decision for your young person, or if you're the young person, make a better decision for you in terms of what you're doing next. And the first idea is, what would it be like if you were able to remain embedded in your local community rather than leaving it just about the time that local community was really going to pay off? Now, should you always live where you grew up? No, I'm not stating that. Should you never move? I'm not making any of those claims. I'm just saying that people underestimate the value of relationships, and relationships tend to come by proximity. So if you have somebody that spent 5, 6, 10, 18 years in a spot, and just about the time they're really becoming their own person, they're developing some marketable skills and they're building some real relationships, you all of a sudden poof them out of that place and put them someplace else, send them to school someplace. Well, that's a bunch of severed relationships, and then they may never come back to that hometown. Now, there's lots of cases where that's a good thing. And I'm not arguing that there's any moral reason to not do that. However, there's some unseen advantages to being embedded in a local community. So Unbound is, first of all, it allows a student to be embedded in the community they're in. They get to still go to the same church. They get to maximize relationships. But we do want them to do some new things. We do want them to broaden their horizons. So there's where the hybrid part comes in. I can let you stay in your local community, and I can provide some educational opportunities for you, ranging from earning a certificate to earning a fully accredited bachelor's degree. And so the internet and technology allows us to do that. But I'm going to put you on a plane every 12 weeks. I'm going to fly you around the country. And so you're going to meet all kinds of people you never met before, to the point that within, just a couple of months after you join the program, you're going to literally have friends all over the country. You're going to be able to drive from coast to coast and never stay in a hotel. And I say that because I do that frequently. I stay with Unbound families as I travel around. I just did that going to Illinois recently and to Chicago. And we went to Chicago and up to Grand Rapids, and we stayed with families along the way because, we know people in all these places because of Unbound.
Now, what age kids are these?
Right. So the flagship program is called Ascend, and that is designed for students post high school. And so that can be as early as
spell that
Ascend, ACSEND. So like as in rising, right? And that's for students who are generally post high school. Sometimes that's as early as 16 or 17 if we've got an accelerated kid, but generally it's 18 to 22. You consider sort of college age. This year, my youngest student's 16, my oldest is 25. You'd be hard pressed to figure out which is which if you saw them in a room.
Huh.
And then we have high school programs for students starting as early as 9th grade. So the high school programs are a curriculum that would ride on top of any other schooling that you're doing and provide the life skills and the study skills and the kinds of practical skills that you need to be able to live that sometimes doesn't cover in the classroom.
Let me insert something here for our listeners. If I have an author on this show, I generally, if I have not read the book, I'll generally talk about the author and ask questions about the book, but I'm only going to tell you, you need to get this book if I've read this book, and I really think you need to get this book. And so what I'm about to say, I want you to know where this comes from. I've spent time with these Unbound students. I've spent time when they were watching one of their events that they all flew to. We've even hired a couple of Unbound people, and I've spent a lot of time watching this and talking to people about this. And so specifically to you, if you are some of my clients and you just happen to be watching our podcast because you just do occasionally, and you have kids in this age, bear down here. All right. I mean, listen to this, because this is, you're not going to find anything like this anywhere else for your young person. And let me listen. So anyway, keep going, buddy. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
You didn't interrupt. And I might also tell your audience this. If you're listening to the Professional Noticer, you're trying to notice some things. And if you haven't read Andy's books, you should do that. But you should particularly read The Little Things in the Bottom of the Pool. And when you read that, and then you listen to our podcast or you read some of our website, you're going to say, boy, there's some things that sound familiar there. And that's not accidental, in the sense that Andy has a particular genius and a gift for, I think, cutting through things. And Andy, I've told you before that we borrow this from you and I attribute to you. I think I told you 75% of the time, which I think is at least as honest as I want to be, on the podcast here, where we say that, look, I'm really careful, Andy, as somebody who comes from a Christian background, there are things that are true with a capital T. And so that truth is there and it's available. But often what happens is people start to think that something works and they say, oh, this is the truth. And it's like, well, not really, but it is a perspective on the truth and allows you to look at it. And so I tell my students all the time, if I'm talking to you and I start to give you advice, I want you to get really nervous. And then I want you to tune me out pretty quickly. I want you to actually be very adverse to people giving you advice, because people who give advice tend to have more fun giving the advice than following the advice. But when somebody's telling you, let me give you a perspective and a way to look at something that helps you see the core principle, the truth of the capital T. So you now have a set of tools you can say, oh yeah, now that I see that in my life, I can apply that and make it work in a better way. That's really important. Now, I think I came up with part of that, but I know I got started thinking about that because I read some books by a guy named Andy Andrews.
Yeah.
And one of the cool advantages I have is that, I spent some years in higher education, traditional higher education, reading books like The Bottom of the Pool, The Professional Noticer, The Traveler's Gift, Little Things, and going, there is wisdom here that needs to be conveyed to the next generation, that is not only not being conveyed, it's often being actively refuted or actively fought in the kinds of educational structures we have. And a lot of my passion for Unbound comes from the ability of saying, we can now take an educational system, we can teach people the stuff that they really need to learn, and we can see whether that works or not, and then we can watch the results. And so, if you're listening to this, there's two things. Sure, I'd love for you to check out, go to beunbound.us and learn about us. But if you really want to learn some of these underlying principles, there's a couple of books like from this guy named Mr. Andy Andrews that you should definitely read, because they were pivotal and foundational to some of the things we're thinking about. And I think ultimately the thread in that is that it's this idea of looking at those core underlying principles and saying, how do we then practically move from there? And if you can figure that out, you can build a life that looks a lot different from most people's.
Well, see, you guys, and you're kind to say that about my books, but you don't need to say anything else about my books. My books, that's just just a simple little beginning for you guys. And I mean, if we could get teenagers to read my books, then maybe we'd have something there. But, for the most part, you can't get teenagers to read the books. And so what is Unbound doing that is taking these teenagers and turning them into just unbelievable people?
So, Andy, one of the things that I'm really fascinated by, don't fully understand, is the power of expectations. And so when I tell young adults, hey, you came in here because I promised to train you to thrive. I'm going to train and equip you to thrive. And you say, okay, well, that's fine. That's just kind of a fancy synonym for success. Yeah, but I want to put some flesh on those bones. And I say, well, when I tell you I'm going to train you to thrive, here's my expectations. I have an expectation that you're going to learn how to accept full responsibility for your life, that you are going to prioritize relationships, because if you prioritize relationships, everything in life becomes easier. That I want you to commit to excellence, but I want that excellence to be in the form of not becoming rich, famous, or powerful, although I'm totally fine if that happens, but at being extraordinary at the ordinary things in life. Because ultimately, if you're extraordinary at ordinary things, the extraordinary often becomes ordinary. So that means you now have a commitment to everyday excellence. That I want you to do it in a way that allows you to understand how to create value, Now you'll notice that it has an economic piece there. I do want you to earn money. You have to support your family and yourself, but I want you to understand not how to earn money. I want you to understand how to create value. That money follows after that, but there's a more fundamental idea of that to begin with. To live resiliently, and we define that by saying, look, a realistic look of the world shows that it's really a busted and broken place. And there's only two, and if you look at that open-eyed, there's a danger there. People that look at that fully honestly, they have two choices: madness or some way to make sense of it. Most people won't have the courage to look at life open-eyed because they fear the madness. As Christians, we say, I want you to look at that and say, yeah, you live in a broken, busted world, but you live in light of a hope that eclipses that brokenness. And to live resiliently is to be able to understand both of those things. And I want you to do that in light of eternity and for the glory of God. And when we tell students that before they enroll and when they enroll, and then we say, we're committing to teaching you each of those pieces as you go through our programs, to give you hands-on training, to put you with peers that think the same things, to have you experience real life stuff together, that give you assignments and expectations to do things beyond what you think you can do. You watch them little by little go, oh yeah, this starts to make sense. And when they're doing that, and the person to the side of them is doing that, and the person to the other side of them is doing that, and the definition of their team success is them all being able to be successful together, that's when really exciting things happen. And I say that because I'm really excited about Unbound, but I say that also because it's really exciting to see the potential that comes. It's a closet, an industry now to talk about how terrible Gen whatever it is. I mean, like the young people these days. But Andy, I was downstairs in our warehouse just a couple of days ago, and we had bought a pack of books from a Goodwill, and we kind of use them as filler on the back of stages. Like we transport to these events, and we set up a bookcase and put some books there. And I know we bought them because we were trying to get some varied colors on them. And I reached up there, and there was a little thin orange book, and I pulled it out, and it said, the title of the book, What's Wrong with Youth Today? And I opened it up, and the date is 1921. and they're talking about the irresponsibility of youth. What's the greatest generation coming up there? I mean, like that's that kind of. And so we have to be careful to say humans are humans, and that comes with all the terribleness of the things that they can't do well and the brokenness that comes with being human. But it also comes with the potential of being made in the image of God and all the excitement that comes with that. And an educational program that's wise enough to do both, then you get to see both, right? You say, okay, yeah, we know you're broken and busted, but also we know there's potential here that's really exciting. So.
Now, I don't know how many staff you have. I've been to one of your things where you flew everybody in one place and saw a lot of staff members, but this is not just you. You're not the only teacher.
That's Unbound. An important thing to know. Correct.
Yeah. I mean, you're the CEO and the president of it, and you speak occasionally, but you have this all out there in a great way.
Yeah, we have both phenomenal staff, including staff who speak besides me. So it's really important to know that you don't sign your student up for 1, 2, or 3 years of listening to Jonathan. That would be a terrible sentence for anybody. So a little bit can go a long way. So we have a staff. We also have this wide network of people that really believe what Unbound does and teach our students through various ways. I mean, some of them do courses with us. Some of them come in and speak at events. And then one of the fun things, Andy, is, when you run 4 events a year, that's 4 events a year with multiple opportunities to bring in some of the best speakers and teachers in the country. And some of those come in repeatedly, and some of those come in one time. And sometimes they serve a particular purpose because we're dealing with a particular issue. And other times that they come back and speak again and again because they have an issue that's important to constantly be renewed. For our students who go to the live events, our first year students have a track that, we work on every year, but is teaching some of these foundations. But our second and third year students all go in a separate track, which means 4 times a year, we have to come up with brand new content, and we have to make sure it stays relevant, right? Our main event is called Apex, and it's our national event, and it's entirely and completely and totally run by a group of students. I sign the contract for the camp that we rent. The students build the website, pick the theme, hire the speakers, write the speaker contracts, do the marketing, call everybody, run the event while it's there. We advise them, but they literally run it. And we just had a meeting with them, and we have a retreat for those students to come in. There's 7 of them this year. And one of the fascinating things that happens is you get to sit in every year, and people say, you give the first event that like the flagship event of your year is totally run by students? And I said, yeah, because it does two things for us. It means that we have to stay relevant because our students are actually picking the themes and stuff that are important for them right now. It also means we have to be really good at training young leaders, because if not, they'll cripple our whole year by having a bad event. And building those kinds of safeties in the program, our students are going to create the first event of the year. Now we have to stay relevant. Now we have to be good at training students. Now we have to be good at making sure that what we're delivering is actually what we say we're delivering. And we've talked about this before. If you spend 3 years with us in Ascend and you earn our full certificate, we guarantee employment. When I say guarantee employment, we say in writing.
Yeah, I was going to ask about this.
Yeah, we say in writing, you'll get hired at a job that pays the same or more than college graduates in your area, whether or not you did a full degree with us or with anybody else, if you're in our program, or we will refund all 3 years of your tuition. And every year people say, that's so crazy. Well, we've never had anybody request for it to be refunded. And last year, after all of our seniors were hired, I had 80 open positions across the country. And my biggest problem is employers going, how long exactly am I going to be in this waiting list before I have students come through? And so, our major problem is getting enough students to come through that. But again, that's a safety catch for us. I'll just tell you, Andy, right now I've got a group of students who will graduate in a couple of months. And our staff just today went through each of those names and said, are we sure that one's hireable? Are we sure that one's hireable? Are we sure that one's? And if not, what do we need to do to get them there? Because in just a couple of months, they need to be hired, or they're going to be waving a signed agreement in front of us saying, hey, remember this guarantee. Right. The good news is most of them are already hired, but we're still, but that's the kind of commitment that I get excited about, saying, well, we have to make sure that we're constantly delivering value to students in order for us to be doing the things we promise to do.
Yeah, but those of you who are subscribers to wisdomharbor.com, you will recognize the name Briley Krisafi. And Briley is one of our favorite contributors, and she was an Unbound student. And boy, she's just come in and just knocked everybody's socks off, and we love Briley.
Well, we love Briley too, because I keep thinking every year that goes by that it's going to be cooler and cooler for me to say Briley was connected to Unbound. Like the first time she was out there, like she might have thought it was cool for her to be connected to Unbound, but I'm pretty sure that pretty soon we'll be like, yeah, she came from us. Yeah,
she is something else. I'm telling you. So there is a project advancement that you have that you've told me about before. Like the first year they do this kind of project, the second year they do this kind, and the next year. So tell me about that again.
I will. I'll also tell you that something a little different from the last time. So we used to come to Gulf Shores, Alabama, which is fantastic. And I guess this is a good reason, although our neighbors aren't as fun as they used to be. We outgrew the location that we were at there. So last year we went, we came south, we went to Panama City Beach, Florida. And Andy, I texted you and I said, look, man, I'm coming to the south, your neck of the woods. This is Gulf Shores territory, right? It's Gulf of America now even. And I'm just telling you, I came from Virginia, which is not known as the frozen north, but I'm expecting Alabama and Florida to be warmer. And I'm in Florida, and there is 4 inches of snow on the beach right now.
You came at the right time, didn't you?
Man, it was something else. So we came down there, and we came down to an event we call Ridgeline. And I know there's an irony there since we're in Florida, but it makes sense in our grand scheme of things. And that event, we get students in, we orient them, and then we give them 3 full days. And when they say 3 full days, you have to complete a project of your choosing. And they choose it at the event that we do called Base Camp. That's just a few weeks before that. And Andy, here's where it gets a little terrifying if you run the program. We commit as a staff to greenlight the top 10 student voted projects, and we have a selection process to go through. So last year we came down to Florida.
Now what does that mean to greenlight their project?
So
what is their project?
At Base Camp, we'd have them all in a room. We say, everybody write down a project that you would do at Ridgeline. It can be as crazy as you want. And then we have them all comment on each other's projects. And then we actually give them all 10 $1 bills. And we have them vote by putting their dollars in the projects. And it's a pretty cool deal for us because we normally wind up with $200 or $300 extra because kids are padding the vote with their own money, right?
Yeah.
And so we take the top 10 that get the highest amount and we greenlight those. Well, last year, one of those was to fly to Florida, buy a car that wasn't running, repair it, and give it away. One of the projects was to build a sailboat and learn to sail. So I'm having visions of like, they're either going to drown in the Gulf of America or they're going to get eaten by alligators inland. I mean, either way. that they were going to create a curriculum for young adults in churches that was going to be based on writing letters, like handwriting letters. One group was going to do an escape room, and they're going to build an escape room they could transport around the country and make some money with, renting it out. We had another group that was going to write an entire song and then film a music video, and another group that was going to write and shoot a short film, 3 days. So we came to Florida. You can go to YouTube and you can find this video. The first car that they went to look at was in Alabama. They drove from Florida up to Alabama. And one of our students said, well, it was a great car in the Facebook pictures. That was before they rolled it down a hill, parked it in the sea for 3 days, and ran it through a herd of deer. So they drove back. Their budget was $1,500. So we got to meet every meth head in that part of Florida, right? And we eventually bought this old Silverado that wasn't running. They hauled it back to the camp. They just jumped on this car. They worked all through the night. And we have this phenomenal picture the next day when they turn the key and that thing turns over and starts. They found a local church, and they had a lady that needed a car to be transported to her first job. She had just come here to the country and she was, struggling. And we were able to actually go and give the keys to her and give her this car that was running great. The kids had detailed it, cleaned up the interior, cleaned and scrubbed everything, took the bed liner out and cleaned the whole thing up. And the kids built a sailboat. They went to Home Depot, came back with a stack of lumber, built a sailboat, sailed it in a lake there, sailed it out, and came back alive. Didn't get eaten by alligators. They were too cold. They have a music video that got filmed. And then one of my favorite stories is they wrote, shot, edited, and produced this short film. And they came back, and one of the kids said, hey, my local university, I won't say what it is. This is a large national university that all of your listeners have heard about, is running a short film competition. Can we enter it? And I said, sure, you can enter it. So they entered, and Andy, they won. They won Best Picture. And this university has a film school. And so they asked the kid on stage, how long did it take to do this? And he said, well, we did it in 3 days. They said, no, how long, like the writing and stuff? He said, we did 3 days. He said, well, with the production, he said, the editing, post-production. And he said in 3 days. And I said, Silas, that was great. But man, they're never going to let you enter again. They had to have bodyguards to get out of there. All these film school kids lost to these outsiders from outside that came in and shot it in 3 days. So when we talked earlier about, what kind of education, it's not ropes courses. I don't want you doing ropes courses. I want you doing real things. I want you to do things that I don't want you eaten by an alligator, but I do want you to sail a boat with the potential of capsizing that thing. We'll have to swim out and get you, because then you have real consequences to actions. And so we do that at Ridgeline in preparation to what you asked, Andy, which is our first year students. The heart of the program is they have to take an idea from an idea to reality. And that idea has to be a big idea. Second year students have to take somebody else's idea from an idea to reality. And third year students have to work on a team to take an idea from an idea to reality. And that, more than a GPA or a transcript, that's the heart of the program. And so our entire program is designed to help students get the confidence, the skills, and the ability to dream big and then watch that idea come to fruition. And, if they do that for 3 years, they take their idea from an idea to reality, somebody else's idea from an idea to reality, lead a team or work on a team that takes an idea from an idea to reality. Are they good employees?
Oh, my gosh.
I know, because I've built not one, but now 2 different businesses with them. And it's night and day against other people. So
that is just awesome. So how do we contact you? How do we find out more about this? I know there's people watching. I cannot wait to show this to my wife tonight. I cannot wait to show this to my husband tonight. We need to watch this with her. And there's people going, man, my best friend, I was talking to him about this the other day, and their kid needs this. So how do we find out more?
Yeah, so we can give you 4 things to do here. So first is easiest. Of course, you can go to Unbound, unbound.us, and that's our website, and you can learn about us there, and you can contact us. I always put this in here. Everybody's always like, contact us, and people these days are a little scared to talk to somebody on the phone, and they're going to try to sell me on something. And the answer is, sure, I'll sell you on something after I know you're a good fit. And so if you call us, you can call it up and you can ask to talk to me if you want. You can talk to our admissions counselors. You can talk to anybody you'd like. And our job is to say, what do you want to do? And if what you want to do is something we can help you with, well, yeah, then we'll be happy to tell you about the program. If not, we might spend twice as long telling you about where you should go instead and giving you some guidance that way. So definitely go there to learn about us. For the students out there, there's always this trepidation, like, what exactly is this thing about? I would say go to YouTube and look for the Be Unbound YouTube channel. And you'll find all kinds of videos there, but especially look for the videos that are recaps of our events. And I will tell folks that, when you do that and you watch those videos, one of two things are going to happen. You're going to say, these people are nuts, I'm not going to hang out with them. Or you're going to say, those look like my people. There's something about being able to see it that makes a difference. And so definitely go to YouTube and do that. If you go to our site, you can also find, we have what we call Thrive events. So we travel around the country. I'm going to be in Halifax, Pennsylvania, a little bit after we record this. In a couple of weeks, I'll be someplace else, which I just forgot about. Oh, I'll be in Northern Virginia. I was just in Chicago. We've got folks that are going to be in 2 or 3 other places. We have teams that go out all the time. And so there's a good chance we're coming to a territory close to you, and you can actually come and meet us, and we do an event and give some presentations, but you have a chance to meet students and talk to our staff. And then you should go to beunbound.us/Andy. And there you can find some of these things I talked about earlier in terms of some of those core ideas. We actually have these 2 really cool courses done with this guy named Andy Andrews. And for listeners of Professional Noticer, if you go to that website, they're not only there, but they'll have a discount on them, which will give you a chance to sort of taste and feel and hear some of the ideas that we talk about that we learned from Mr. Andrews himself.
Well, I'm just one of the small-time faculty members there, so... But I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I know you have like 150 kids, and you and your wife, how many kids do y'all have?
We have 8. And if that sounds surprising to you, you should think about how surprised I am by that. So
yeah.
In fact, we have 8, and we joke around and say God gave us the first 6 to keep the last 2 alive. So
yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, buddy, for being with us. I always love spending time with you, whether it's on the phone or like this. So we'll talk again another couple of days, I'm sure.
Thank you, Andy. It is an honor and a privilege to be here. So it's very special to be on the show, and thank you for all you do.
All right, buddy. Bye-bye.
Take care.
I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer, harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. And I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing what tiny bit of mental energy I have for you, seeking wisdom, making observations, and endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Limpert. The Noticer theme written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. Green Kool-Aid for the cast and crew provided by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. Additional financial consideration provided by CaffeineDrowsy.com. Do you have trouble sleeping? Are you tired of tossing, turning, and questioning your life choices at 2:37 a.m.? Then ask your doctor about Caffeine Drowsy, the caffeinated sleeping pills, the only sleep aid bold enough to ask, what if we did both? Each pill delivers a gentle wave of relaxation, immediately followed by the irresistible urge to reorganize your garage, text 3 people you haven't spoken to since 2012, and solve every problem you've ever had. With Caffeine Drowsy caffeinated sleeping pills, you'll drift peacefully into a state of half sleep, half espresso-fueled self-reflection. Side effects may include vivid dreams about spreadsheets, falling asleep while standing up, and waking up refreshed but emotionally prepared for a TED Talk. Perfect for night owls, overthinkers, and anyone who wants 8 hours of rest compressed into 45 extremely productive minutes. Caffeine Drowsy, caffeinated sleeping pills, because sleep is important, but so is staying alert while you do it.